Why why is the
What
music
happened?
still playing? I have no idea.
Okay, cool. We're here.
Oh, it's still here. Oh,
What?
oh, I know what's
Strong,
happening.
strong start, episode 4.
It must be okay.
GM.
GM. I was listening to until that moment, I was listening to our show in delay because I had a YouTube channel
Oh,
open apparently.
yeah.
So all of that was just very, very confusing to only me, I guess. And I just kind of sat there and looked like, confused, which is great. A great way to start episode 4.
Love it. It reminds me back in the day when people would call into the radio to like win contests. The
Hmm.
radio station always had to be like, "Turn your radio down," because it
Just
would
turn it
create this
off in
like
the background.
feedback loop.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what it was, just in my head. And I was like, oh, cool, cool. It's only because we went live that it's something is happening that I can't control. Cool.
The magic of live.
Hmm.
Uh, how's it going? Well, it's good to see. It's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. It is. It's
Basel
good.
happened.
Basil, you had
Miami Art Week. Sorry, you can't say Basel.
yes, yes.
Basel only pertains to one event, and if you use that term outside of it,
Shh,
gonna get sued.
shh. Nobody said Basil. That's crazy talk. Yes,
Yeah.
Miami Art Week was a thing. I didn't get to go. You went. You had a pretty good showing right there. You had a piece that congratulations, it sold also, and it looked gorgeous in the Christie's exhibition with NFT Now, and all those other pieces look so good. That was
Thank you.
that was a little bit of FOMO, but it looked good, man.
It was a lot. I mean, that gateway event was packed. The line out the door was insane.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it looked incredible, and saw so many friends. Met a lot of people I hadn't met before, and yeah, the auction, 7-day auctions, man, brutal.
Phew.
You really you really have to just like sweat it out for a few days, and then at the end it happens. But thankfully, it ended after everyone got back to their respective homes
Yeah,
this past Tuesday. So
that was
um,
smart.
yeah, so I'm very happy with how it went. And shout out to NFT Now, and shout out to all the other events that showed my art, Rug Radio, All Ships. There were some really cool activations in Miami, um, and yeah, no, my voice is mostly back. I did better this time without
Right.
losing my voice. I think it's because I avoided going to a lot of those late night like DJ club events where you have to scream a lot. So
Yep.
I'm getting better at this, I think.
It's what, like 3 or 4 years on now. I mean, eventually you learn, you take, lessons. I learned, Jay and Silva gave me the alpha a couple years ago with the
Cough
halls,
drops. Yeah.
bring some cough drops. If,
And
that
if you
plus
didn't bring
water.
them, he always has extras to
He
hand you.
does. He's solid for that. He's got it always on hand. Um, Speaking of friends, we've got a friend waiting in the wings, and I think we should bring him in this week. I'm super super stoked to talk to Efdot. So let's bring Efdot in. Yeah, he's awesome, incredible muralist and designer and illustrator, and he's done animation too. And yeah, Efdot, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, guys? Thanks so much for having me.
Another Miami friend from last week. I think we were talking. The alpha in Miami is about carpooling, because you go to these events and you get 2 to 3 minutes to talk to people max, but then the commutes take an hour, and so if you can pile 3 or 4 people into a car, you can have a pretty solid conversation with friends. And so everyone complains about the traffic, but the traffic is where all the the deeper conversations, and also time for you to get on social media happens.
Yeah, it was a lot of running around. I think I learn every year. Sorry.
Everyone's saying, "I see you on TV right now." No.
It's okay. You're famous.
Yeah, I thought I turned that off. My bad. All right,
No, it's all
we
good.
are. Yeah. Miami was really fun. It was a lot of running around. I think that I'm gonna push back on you, Brian, and say, like, if you plan it out well, you can avoid the traffic and you can have some longer conversations, as long as you're not like looking over the shoulder of the person you're talking to while you're talking to them. You can actually connect deeper with people at the events. It's just planning and kind of connecting with in the DMs and being like, hey, let's chat at this event. And then you end up having some really good conversations. I think NFT Now is also my highlight of the week, the Gateway. And congratulations on the piece selling at Christie's. It's freaking amazing, man.
So cool.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I agree. I struggle. I have like ADHD, so when I talk to people, I like
Yeah.
get distracted. Especially these events where there's like lights and sounds and people, and like I'm always looking around, and I'm always like, do they think I'm like trying to find someone more interesting to talk to? So I'm like, I have to like really focus and not get distracted.
But
Yeah,
I feel like
it's not
that's
e- it's not easy.
but that's a good thing, like to have that awareness, right? Like, so it's such a bummer when you talk to somebody at any of these events and you can sense that they're just like trying to suss out who to talk to while you're talking to them, some of them, and you're just like, oh, this sucks. I'll just cut this early because we're not really talking here. But every now and then you get the people who understand that, like if you're, I don't know, that you're just genuinely happy to talk to, and you connect. And I saw somebody saying like the alpha, like you said, the alpha was the car rides, but like that was for me last time too. Anytime I got to sit with somebody outside of the loud event, I mean, that's all it is that's what I liked about last year's NFT NYC, is I was mostly in art galleries and they were not loud and I got to see people and talk about art. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things last year was seeing Efdot do a live painting in Miami at the Gateway event, which was awesome.
I saw the
Remember
final
we were
result.
talking with Tyler Hobbs came over and we were all talking together, and that was such a fun moment.
Yeah, still can't believe that happened in terms of like just last minute opportunity and having a great space, and couldn't have really like placed the mural any better. Man, I'm trying to do something bigger next year, but this year was a bit more of a research and development for me. I had that same piece, the animated version, on display this year at the Black Dove event, so it was kind of a cool
Nice.
full circle moment for that one. And yeah, I've just been working on that series, so hopefully next year when that project is ready, it'll be back at Miami.
That's right. I did see your piece at Black Dove. Did you end up going there that day?
Yeah, I checked it out for a little while.
Yeah, I was there in the morning with Coldy. It was fun.
Yeah, really nice people who put together that event. I mean, everything is a little bit far away to try and catch everything and actually spend the proper time talking to everyone. But yeah, I think I like Miami more than NFT NYC because in some ways, because it's just such an art focus and less of it's like conference that's happening and people are like, do I go? Do I not go? Do I submit? It feels like it's just art galleries, artists, curators. It's like, that's for us. It's not as much. It's always interesting. Like I ran into someone on the plane that was going down for like, they're in the gaming side of NFTs. And I'm like, so like you're going to Art Basel? That's interesting that y'all are going and meeting. I guess there's a gaming side for it too. There's something for everyone.
Yeah. In thinking on past years where there used to be Goblin Town and Bored Apes and all that, this year the only PFP event I went to was the Pudgy Penguin, which was a great event. But it just shows that like I think most projects are pushing back against like Miami is like maybe they have like Bitcoin Week and stuff. Maybe that's better for like PFPs and stuff. There was a big ordinal presence there though, which is kind of a mixed bag of art and collectibles.
Yeah, the fake Basel event.
Yeah. Was and there was a fake Pepe thing too, I think, right?
That's the same one.
Same one, yeah. That was on Sunday, I think, so I was already out of town, unfortunately. I wanted to go to that. Same with the All Ships Brunch. I know. It's one of those things where you book your tickets and then all the schedules come out and you're like, oh man, and I'm too cheap and I bought like verbal tickets.
You're never gonna get it right. I mean, like there's so many events that are happening at these things, like, and then
it was for the best. Yeah. I was burnt out by that point too.
So speaking of murals, so we're going to talk about a piece of yours today. This is not a mural, right? This is, I think this one is digital, but I love your consistency. Here, I'll bring this piece up here. This is course correction. And this is up on Super Rare, I believe. Oh no, Foundation. This one, right? This one's on Foundation. And I love the gradient, and but I mean, like all of your work has so much energy and detail with shapes that that you use, consistent. Again, the consistency in your work, but still being able to make things that resonate and feel unique each time. What is this one that we're looking at right here?
Yeah, I can share the story behind this one. So thanks for queuing it up like that. This, I think, fits into my open lines style work, where I'm creating layered forms and lines that kind of create a sense of depth within a 2D piece. And that's something I've been doing for a couple years now, and just trying to really master that technique, because it feels like that's the thing that I enjoy most these days, is like figuring out how to turn a 2D plane into something more, and to allude to a whole scene or a mood or a time that you might have had somewhere buried in your subconscious. So this piece really started off by Rich Caldwell, the drone photographer, bringing together for the second time a really amazing group of artists for his 12 Days of Art project. And
Yep.
I did it last year. It was on Nifty Gateway. This year it's on Foundation. And yeah, I wanted to feature this piece for the show because it's coming out today in a few hours.
Oh, nice.
And I started off with his photography, just kind of looking through his library, seeing, you know, what was resonating with me. Last year I did a basketball court of his with some of my like mural style digitally added in there. And this year I wanted to do something really different. And I found this one photo of a mini golf course that he shot in Riverside, California. And I did share the side-by-side on Twitter, if you can pull it up, so you can kind of see like where it started.
Yeah, give me a moment. I'll take a look.
Yeah, once you said Rich, I immediately was like, oh, is this the mini golf course? Then you see the trees from above. Now I totally see it. This is awesome.
Yeah, mini golf really resonates with me. I used to play as a kid and love it, and just the creativity that goes into building those places. It's like a giant sculptural mural that's like on the floor, that's interactive. It's very underrated art form, I think, mini golf course design. And you look at this thing from above and it's like, holy crap, like this looks like a fountain or some kind of older courtyard. And then you look a little closer and you're like, oh, those are each holes on the mini golf course. And every time it changes direction, it's like the person has to change direction and kind of reorient themselves or bounce the ball. And so I started thinking about my dots kind of like bouncing around the composition. And then when you actually think about the scale of the reference, you sort of put yourself in the composition and think about like, what if I was that one of those dots floating around within these shapes?
No, that's awesome, man. I love mini golf. Big fan. I was a camp counselor years ago, and then I was like in charge of the mini golf area. Lot of nostalgia, right? Tied to that. But I can see it. Like I love how you translated your style into all of this. Like I pulled the side by side there, like, and his aerials just look surreal to begin with. But I can also see why you were drawn to this with all the color. It's gorgeous. So correct me if I'm wrong, your work feels very rules driven, like you give yourself a set of rules to kind of push yourself inside the boundaries. Would that be fair to say? Or like what are your thoughts when you go about creating a piece in general?
Yeah, I think there's some element of guidelines and constraints that I'm trying to set for myself to keep it interesting from my last work to my next work to the next. So some continuity while also having some variation. So I even put in the metadata of my pieces, especially my one of ones. I try to do this every time. What is the line weight that I chose compared to the other line weights that I've chose? How dense is the line work? Are there collisions between the line work? What's the background color? What's the line color? And those traits are sort of constraints that I'm making, but I'm also not afraid to completely break outside of them in the middle of the process. Sometimes I'll decide to throw on halftone textures or graphite textures or noise textures and duplicating layers, masking layers, just kind of playing within Procreate once I have my base composition done. And it's really intuitive for me and fun. And just like hours go by, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be when I'm doing that process, but I'm not trying to like squarely stay within those constraints. I'm just starting there and then letting my mind wander.
Yeah. I did
actually one more thing. Actually, like I started with the photo and then I realized it wants to be bigger. Like there's more outside the photo that Rich didn't capture. So I actually used Photoshop generative fill to extend the photo and then had a starting point for the flow of the rest of the composition. And then I kind of just like, I played around with that tool for a while until I had a starting point to go from for like a square version of this photo.
That's cool.
Yeah. Last night I was at Station 3 and there was a panel on generative art, and everyone was kind of asking, what is generative art? And, to me, it's system-based art that has a level of randomness. And so I consider how you create generative art in a lot of ways, because I've seen how you work. You start with patterns, with the system, and then you allow randomness to kind of take over as you fill in the blanks, right?
Well, sometimes I don't start with a system. I think like a blank sheet of paper and a marker is like, is that a system or is that just a tool? I think because the marker has a uniform thickness when you drag it across the paper, is that a system or is that a tool? It's like a fine line, right? So sometimes I'll have less constraints, and I don't consider that a system, but sometimes I will like actually design a system like the grid that you're seeing up in my banner image, and then trying to break free from that system a little bit.
Wow.
And you've really expanded your style in the past year, I would say, too. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of you've both been cohesive with bringing it in, but some of the works that you've put out in the past year, I could not tell they were yours at first until you really dive in, like your ordinal piece, for example, or there was one that was almost like a pencil drawing. It was like gray and white, and it and even the not the meme card, the coin desk piece you did.
But the coin desk piece was a big departure from your current style that you're known for, which I'm all about people just doing whatever feels right in the moment for whatever piece they're working on. That was an interesting, like, to go from, like, this is you've essentially created, in my opinion, an iconic character. I don't know if it has a name, but I love seeing this character show up, and I immediately just go, oh, there's Efdot. Like, that is you to me. How did that come about?
So the character is called the Blob, and the Blob started showing up in my work about 5 years ago. I was living in Argentina at the time. I had a job that kind of relocated me down there for a couple years, and I knew I wanted to create a character that I could explore, because once you have a character or a visual language or any iconic form that's yours, that allows you to explore deeper themes around it. And the character just becomes the constant, so it's me, or it's whichever artist you're referencing. And then everything else is like, okay, the artist is doing their thing, but they're also exploring something new. They're exploring a new emotion, a new mood. And that was why I wanted to create this character in the beginning, was because I was doing a lot of hand lettering and things that were very overt in their messaging. Like, you just see the lettering and you see what the piece is supposed to mean. And then I was like, how do I communicate more abstract ideas and more things that don't really translate to words very easily? So back in Argentina, I was actually feeling pretty homesick and lost. I didn't know the language very well, and so I was overwhelmed trying to assimilate into the culture. My job was great, but I didn't really feel as much of a connection to the culture as I would like later in the year, once I like could really speak the language and notice the nuances of Argentinian life versus anywhere else. And so I made this blob kind of as a way to comfort myself. And I was like curled up in a ball, like in my head, metaphorically, trying to rediscover my own identity and gain a sense of purpose in this new community, realizing, had I just ruined everything that I had going back home to like run away and do this adventure, or was I really in the place where I belonged? So that's when I started drawing these characters. And once I felt like they were a little more recognizable than what the characters I had drawn in the past, I just like hit the ground running and started doing different variations and murals and prints, even working with like a screen printing shop down in Argentina to do my first run of screen prints. And that was how it started. But it kind of became my companion character, like wherever I went. And now I almost think of it as less of a character and more of an energy that can like break apart and come back together and find itself like hiding within patterns. I think a lot of it is about hiding. And I'm on my own journey as well to like being able to hide less in my work, or hide in more intentionally things in my work rather than just hiding through abstraction. And the last thing I'll say is like the character doesn't have a nose or a mouth, and that's purposeful. It's like really much a feeling that when you look at the character, it's like peaceful. It's not speaking at you, telling you to do something. It's not trying to tell you how it feels even. It's like up to you how to interpret the colors and the other details around the blob to kind of decide what it means to you.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that is way more than I ever really kind of like understood about the character. That's a really awesome connection there in terms of like, especially I can relate to the idea of hiding with inside of your artwork or putting messages in that that you want to express, but you also want to keep guarded. So to see that and to have a central character that's so expressive yet minimalistic and kind of weaves its way into your work is really powerful. Wow. And this is the ordinals piece you did, right? And
Yeah.
I think you've even got your character hiding, buried deep here in the center of this, and this is interesting too because this was done before the Rich Caldwell piece, correct? So it looks like an aerial, maze, right? Like there's dimension here and intentionally. So like I think that I don't know. I just think your style translates really well in these different mediums. Um, have you done any exploration outside of 2D, outside of any like VR painting or anything with 3D printing or anything like that? Have you experimented with clay? It feels very clay like.
Ooh, yeah. I love the clay textures and all the chunky graphite textures that I've been exploring lately. I think the 3D is a little overwhelming for me right now. I see all the tools and I don't often like picture it in my mind 3D. And so I have to really just like get over the hump and start playing around with the tools and see what happens. And I end up kind of going back to 2D after a while. My brother actually is a great engineer and he works in 3D tools, not the ones that you typically use to make art, but he's taken some of my vector drawings and extruded them or revolved them and created some 3D things with my work. But I haven't done it a lot myself. I think I've tried the VR painting once or twice. I didn't love the interface, but I think if I find the right brush or the right tool, like I'm very particular about the brushes that I use because I want it to mimic my physical practice. And that's part of the consistency that I want to create is like, I don't see digital and physical to be that different in terms of like how I'm expressing myself. It's through line work and motion. I can do it in different ways digitally than I can physically, of course, but I want you to be able to look at both and kind of see like my hand. And I guess to touch on what you said about the CoinDesk piece, sometimes I just have an idea for a special project. Like that wasn't me making whatever I wanted. That was, I had a very specific assignment. And in order to make it palatable and clever and feel like me, I was like, maybe I'll take a different approach for this one. Because I could have just drawn the guy with like my lines around him, but that's not very interesting.
Sure.
So, this felt like more of a storytelling piece rather than so much text. There's so much lettering incorporated here rather than my typical abstract work. So that's probably what you're seeing is like, I don't often draw people. I often don't draw lettering anymore. So of course it looks different. And the assignment was so different.
Yeah, and not that it's a negative in any way. It was just more of an interesting like, um, y- you know, take to just see like the breadth of skill, right? Because didn't you? I feel like you have a partnership at one point with Topps Cards, right? And that work is also not abstract, correct? Like that work is also more in the realm of this, if I'm not mistaken, unless I am.
Yeah.
Trying to remember right now.
Yeah, that was a great project for me to do, like explore different portrait styles
Yeah,
and figure out how I could tell the story of someone or some team when it does have to be kind of more referential and more lettering based. And so yeah, this is actually a lot like some of my Topps cards. But I did do a couple of Topps cards that were more abstract, and it was also really interesting to see the response of like, wow, this one actually looks like your style. And it's like, well, why aren't more of them like your style? It's like, I don't know. It's just creating like I think style in general is something that people talk a little too much about when they're referring to their own style. I think style is how other people perceive the work and how certain specific people connect the dots in their own way. We all are experts at looking for patterns because that's just how our brains are wired as humans. But you look closer and there's like a blob hiding in the trunk of that car, and there's like little iconography hidden around. If you go back to the CoinDesk piece, there's like little, there's like different little nods to my style as you look closer.
Yeah,
I love it.
it is.
Yeah, I
It's
think
really
the
great.
blob would make a really great vinyl toy, or even like a marble thing, kind of a squarish shaped marble thing.
It would, man. That would be awesome. Where do you feel like well, so that's an interesting thought about style, right? In general, when you said that, that's something that I always think about in terms of do you I'm in favor of an artist doing whatever they want to do with their art and expressing themselves however they want. We all know that it is easier to gain some traction, especially in the internet, when you focus in on one particular style. And having done that for a while and then switching things, how do you feel about like the feedback that comes from that? Like, or is there any fears for doing something like that, or you just go for it and just say this is just who I am?
I think I had some fears about it before doing the Tops project because I knew I didn't even have my style as well defined as I do now when back in 2020 when I started that. So it was a lot of okay, I'm going to use this as an exploration. Like I'm going to just follow where I need to be right now with this project and let the feedback come. So I wasn't too scared, but a little more uncomfortable than I am today doing something like that, just because I have a lot more of these under my belt now. And some of the feedback that I get on the cards specifically, obviously people are like, looks awesome. Like do it with my favorite player. Or, why did you draw him wearing a Yankees jersey when he played for the Mets for 1 year longer or something like that. People are very, very tribal about their teams and their players. And so I had to kind of ignore a lot of that feedback, unfortunately, or like take it with a grain of salt. But it is really cool when it is someone's favorite player and you're speaking their language. You're speaking their language of their childhood, their memories. Like it cuts deep, especially Ken Griffey Jr. and some of these people you're like flashing up. They were just they were all over TV in the 90s and early 2000s, some of them. And it's just really cool to like go back and connect with people about and see who they resonated with. And I guess like these days when I switch up my style, I get really good feedback. I think people are happy to be seeing the evolution of my style. And whenever I get a comment like that, like so stoked on the evolution that you're doing with your work, that just reminds me that I'm on the right path and that it's not something that should be jarring when you switch up your style. It should be exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this in general has brings me back to like Keith Haring vibes, right? Like, I don't know if he was any inspiration for you growing up. I know just being around New York and growing up in Jersey and New York, like anytime I'd go into the city and see, his murals just, on basketball courts and whatnot. I don't know. I look at this and it also just feels nostalgic. Like there's something about it and it feels very 70s-esque in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, when I was doing the hand lettering early on, I was always looking at these 70s album covers and trying to find like the funky scripts that did things that you wouldn't normally do with letters, but people were having fun. People were drawing, like people were just connecting ligatures between letters and creating cool abstract forms within that art. And so I gravitated towards those styles. And I think even with furniture design, architecture, fashion, like I really loved the 70s, 80s, and also 60s styles, 90s with like the sort of paper cup aesthetic, that turquoise, pink and blue cup, was like everywhere in my house. So there's a lot of real references to these things in my style. And I think Keith Haring was also a big influence of mine without really knowing it. I think when I met Stefan Mattiak, who I actually minted my first piece with as a collab, he's the one who was like, you got to look more into Keith and find your line work and really be confident with it because you have something here. And I wasn't drawing line work as much back then. Stefan really pushed me to find my own, line work and not always fill everything in because I was drawing the blob, but it was always filled in. And it was always like a different sculptural kind of thing, trying to find that form. And line is just so much more satisfying to me. And Keith Haring really like paved the way for a lot of us to do that. So got to shout out Keith. But also he was inspired by many people too that
For
people
sure.
don't talk about. So yeah.
No, for sure.
I think about just the evolution of your work, because I remember your first Nifty Gateway drop, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years ago? Is that right? Or 3? 2 years
2
ago?
years. Yeah.
That project was a collection of kind of baseball cards, but not baseball related. And then you sent out physical card size pieces to them. And so it had this kind of evolution of you transitioning, but still, showing kind of a nod to the previous stuff you were doing. And so, and I still see it with everything you're doing here, where you just see this continual growth and evolution, which is always really exciting to see. Like those pieces there, the green one there, where you did the different seasons, right?
You talking about this one?
Oh yeah. 4 elements.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Elements. Sorry. Yes.
That's okay.
And that was a physical you did for a hotel, right? Am I remembering this?
Yeah, it was like a hotel and retreat center in Mexico.
Yeah. And they turned out awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
So
man.
it's just
Yeah.
like seeing all these different ways you keep kind of branching out. It's very, I think it'll be, I can't wait for you to have like a retrospective show where you can see the full breadth of all these things.
Dude,
Yeah.
me too. Thank you. I think the travel is my main inspiration. Like if you see that row there of flowers that were there, it's like that. I've made a little thread about why I draw dots and what got me starting to draw patterns. And it was actually, I was in Taiwan and I saw this flower, lotus flower, and I was like, there's something special about this flower. So I started talking to people about it, and I learned that some people are actually afraid of patterns like that. They have this like tense phobia of holes. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
what's up?
Yeah.
That's it. I forget what it's called, the phobia, but
Trypophobia?
Trypophobia.
Yeah, that's right.
Trypophobia. I don't know why I have that fear, but I do.
And so I just like, there's something powerful about positive and negative space, just like there is with lettering. But if you take away the lettering and you just have dots of positive and negative space, like the fact that our brain is wired to do something with that sends us into some kind of extreme reaction, like that was fascinating to me. So I was just like, I'm going to explore patterns for a while. And it wasn't even a thought like to do something that different. It was how can I rearrange the most basic elements, lines and dots, to produce the strongest feeling?
That's great, man. It's really awesome. And I love stuff like this. I mean, I'm a
Those would be good stickers too.
big fan of minimalist versions of it. Oh, they're so good.
Yeah.
They
And you can
translate
see-
really well.
Yeah. You could see it in the photo. I mean, you have a background in skating, and I see a motion and flow to your work that I think is correlated there, you know?
Yep.
That one's not mine.
I was just gonna say I
can
clicked
say
on the wrong one.
But
That's
I mean, you've done awesome skateboard decks. And
Yes.
when I saw you in Miami, you just went to a skate park and were hanging out there. I love those wavy boards. Have you tried riding those? Does those work?
I haven't tried riding them. I got them and they didn't have holes in them to attach
Oh,
trucks.
yeah.
And
yeah.
I just made them as art canvases for now.
Skateboards
awesome.
are so much fun to paint.
Yeah, I want to do more of those in the springtime. Yeah, skateboarding's huge influence on my work. I think it's like the satisfaction of landing a trick or landing a series of tricks. It feels so addicting and so sublime that as I get older, I'm like, how can I get more of that feeling of surprising myself or doing something with a unique style or a unique motion or a movement? And it's like we're doing that with our eyes and our hands as well as we create art. And so hopefully capturing a little bit of that flow and a little bit of that satisfaction like in each piece. I definitely haven't been able to learn as many tricks as an adult as I did when I was a teenager or in my 20s, but I still loved riding around the city. Is like these are so nostalgic for me because I grew up coming down to this area in downtown Manhattan with, the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
And just like skating all around this area, finding street spots, getting kicked out from one spot to the other, just like playing cat and mouse with security, essentially. So there's a bit of mischief hiding in the layers.
Yeah. There was one, I think maybe 2 down from it, Adam. 3 down. That one felt like a big step forward for you this year, where you were integrating the background coloring in a way that I hadn't seen as much in your work, and I thought this was such a strong piece.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you were saying this looks like a movie poster for Close Encounters of the
Close
Third
Encounters
Kind.
of the Third
Yeah.
Kind, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does.
But it's
Look
like
at
a child in their like
Yeah,
nursery, right? Is that what I'm?
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Playroom. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I love it. But like that's what I love is that you're taking these kind of artistic leaps in different directions, and when they land, they're just like expanding your tool set.
Yeah, I think
Well,
Gradients
yeah.
did that for you this year, especially.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, the physical side of things always informs the digital. And so when I'm playing around on paper, sometimes it'll be like, okay, I think I know what this needs, but it's going to be easier to do it digitally. And that's usually when I jump over. And as much as I want to be able to just start and finish digitally, I find that my work is better when I relax and remove all the options, have like 2 pens and a piece of paper. I can't zoom in, I can't scale it, I can't undo. That gets me like somewhere. At least it gets me to decide what I want to make if I'm not sure what I want to make, and then jumping digitally to like refine it.
Love
That's
it.
awesome. All right. Well, I don't have a good segue, but
Speaking of inspiring artists,
hey, Brian, you win today. Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a look. This is where we spend a little bit of time. Each of us brings 3 artists that we've either collected or just admire or have seen work that's caught our eye, and we talk about it. I think I'm the only one who has seen all of the art that's about to be shown, so everything here is kind of like a in real time reaction. But this is time for show and tell.
yeah.
So let's kick this off with a piece that that Efdot brought here. All right, look at this and find this first one. Let's go with this one. This one's really fun. This is Under the Influence.
Whoa.
Yeah, and
Blow it up.
I
That little dashes in the bottom right.
too. Before I do that, I want to get the artist's name right. I'm going to get it wrong.
I have it here. It's Ivan Cassis.
Ivan Cassis Jr.
Yeah.
Does that work for you guys? Are you able to still see it?
It
paused.
Press play again. It paused. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be playing. Here we go.
It's
Apparently
so
not.
epic that it crashed the machine.
It did.
Maybe
We'll
give
try
it a
this.
refresh.
We'll give it
That's
a reload.
awesome.
It's
Want to
gorgeous.
talk a little bit about it, Efdot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this challenge to figure out 3 pieces that I wanted to talk about was actually harder than I expected. I did a good bit of collecting last year, but this year I've been a little slower to collect, and I wanted to spotlight artists that are still showing up every day and coming out with new work today. So I went and made up a post and said, like, who deserves more attention on their work that has less than 2,000 followers? And someone shared Ivan's work, and this piece really stood out to me, mainly because it is this like positive take or fascinating take on something that's sort of negative. I really enjoy when people can be honest in their work, but still keep a bit of lightheartedness. And I'm seeing here people on this never-ending conveyor belt, essentially, and getting smushed by iPhones and little pop-ups saying like trending, monetize, and fulfillment, and all these things that you read on the timeline, but you don't really know how people are feeling behind the scenes. And so it does sort of feel like we're getting smushed between 2 iPhones on a daily basis. And I really related to it. It just felt like an honest piece, but very fascinating visually and a bit more of a lighthearted take on the situation that we're in.
It's interesting that they're all going backwards too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably symbolic too. Yeah.
This might be the first Tezos piece that we've had shared on the show, which is
amazing. It is, and I think we have a couple today, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I love it. It gives you that kind of German, it's like expressionist, but
Exploded
industrial
drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the isometric
Mm-hmm.
feel of it. It reminds me, growing up in Omaha, there was a band called The Faint, and they had a lot of this type of vibe to their music videos and art, and I always was a huge fan. This is cool. I haven't heard of this artist, so awesome start to this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. For anybody
Yeah.
who's watching along, I'm going to be we'll tweet out a thread with all the art from today, from Efdot's art to all of the pieces that we share on the show, and hopefully we can get more eyes on some artists. All right, so let's move.
I also wanted to say that last
Yeah.
thing is I think
Okay.
it's so impressive when artists can use just black and white and
Mm.
create such a compelling piece, because it is not easy to constrain yourself to just black and white. And a lot of
Yeah.
times it's like you want it to be better, so like let's add some color, that'll make it better. But no, it's like this artist really knew what they wanted to make, and they're like, I don't need the color. I think I can do it with just black and white, and I think it's really strong because of that.
Yeah, and the texture work is gorgeous here too.
It's all the more dire being black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely suit it. It tees up the mood nicely. All right.
Okay.
We're gonna take a left turn here. We're gonna go with one of Bryan's, and this is.
I always forget what I submit, so it's. Oh yes. Okay.
There we go. So this is post.
This is Whale Stink.
Calaveras XX.
Yes. So I met this artist in Miami. I wasn't as familiar with his work, but he was extremely nice and thoughtful, and he told me about this project where it's kind of a parody of Skulls of Lucy by Sam Spratt, but he does Skulls of Lucifer, and his goal is to make 666 of these, and he mints them, I think, daily.
Wow.
But there's, if you click into the whole collection, it's just filled with really fun stuff. But this one, I was drawn to because I love They Live, and also it has a lot of kind of my color scheme favorites in it. But I just, it has this texture to it that's just phenomenal. It kind of has those Efdot dots in there, but I'm a huge fan of like halftones and stuff. But yeah, the whole collection's wild. I recommend it, and he's got a wide range of stuff. But that was an artist that in Miami I was kind of exposed to in a way, which is always so exciting because there's just people making insanely cool art that you just fly under your radar a lot of the times in this space.
Yeah. I love the variety, right? Like it's very clearly a collection of exploration and playing. Nice reference here.
Beetlejuice, yeah.
Little Beetlejuice action. Man. But like to have some, the artist was like, all right, now I'm doing notebook paper right now. Now I'm doing, these black and whites and just like some more Beetlejuice. But just, to give yourself the freedom to do that. Oh, there's look at that. There's one of your cups. Which it's so wild when you said that about one of the things that just like hit for inspiration in the 90s, and you said the aqua and pink cups, and I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. They were ubiquitous in the 90s, which is pretty wild. Whoa, look at this guy. Whew.
Some sick stuff.
Yeah I love the texture.
Yeah. And I love the challenge of doing 666 individual pieces. That's not easy. And each one feels special, which is cool. And, having bought it, I joined their Discord, and it's awesome to see all these people that are kind of along for the ride. You build up a really strong community, similar to the Skulls of Lucy that Sam did, but his was, I think, 50 skulls, right?
Yeah.
This is pushing it to an even crazier degree. So it's fun to see. I mean, there's been a few kind of skull derivatives out there, but this one felt especially kind of strong and really spoke to a unique style, not just a replication like some of the ones.
Yeah. Well, I think what also helps it is that it doesn't feel like iterations on the same theme. Like especially if you're going to do if you're going to do 600 plus, it's going to get boring quick if you're doing that. So this is great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
We're gonna move over, and we're gonna stay on the skull theme. We're going to one of my picks. Here we go. Yep, this is
you guys know
an
I love
edition.
skulls.
This is an edition that I believe is called I Skull Skull I. Which is
Nice.
amazing that that's essentially the title, with all emojis. Recito, I'm not entirely sure, but I found this and it stopped me in my tracks because I love the hand painted, animated, the textures that fire hits just right for me. Seeing a subtle paper texture, the minimalist version of this ethereal, non-landscape. Like I love everything about it. I love that the eyes are not perfect and they're gloopy and they move in a fun way. It's just it all feels very I don't know. It feels like a very dark children's book, and I love that. And I
Yeah.
love this line that's coming down here.
Yeah. The thing that catches my eye, I hadn't seen this before, um, is that everything is on threes, and 3 frames,
Yeah.
except the words. That's where it breaks the pattern because you could go, oh, that's a 3 frame animation, but you see it coming out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this thing, and then you go, okay, this is actually like a 10-second animation or something.
Right.
But I like that breakup as opposed to just having everything be that like
On the
3
same beat.
frames.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's like what like X copy is kind of on threes as well. And you get this real thing, but then there's that word that kind of break it up and slow down the overall piece. I really dig that.
Yeah. Yep. This is really nice. Just interpretive storytelling in as few shapes as possible, and that really hits for me. If a lot of my work is in the same realm of keeping things kind of like, with less is more and trying to tell a story. So yeah, and I love the colors here too.
The
Just
subtle black painted background goes a long
mhm.
way too.
Yeah, that it's exactly that. You can see the texture there. That it wasn't just
Yeah.
black. There's a lot of intention behind this piece, and I love it. Okay, let's go back to Efdot. Let's go with this piece here, which I
Oh,
chose out of a handful because you basically you told me to take a look at this collection in general from
Mhm.
the artist. I'm not going to get it right. Maybe Sebastestro, maybe.
So,
good try.
yes, Seba is his name, Sebastian.
This was
Sestato.
from Memories from Another Life is the series, and they're really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, he has some work on ETH as well, but this is some of his newer stuff. I had the lovely chance to meet him as well when I was out in Europe this summer. We had both pieces in a show together with Ninfa and Futura Drops. And he had a piece that was just like very introspective, contemplative. I know those are similar meanings, but it just feels like that his work really evokes that feeling from you. Like the color palettes, the soft purples and pinks, the subtle animation where it's like always having to do with something that's happening in your head. You can tell he has a lot of thoughts in his head and he's trying to express that through each piece. And he's similar to me where it's like there's eyes, there's no nose and no mouth. So there's not a lot of body language. It's like it leaves open to interpretation, that sort of staring back at you feeling without telling you exactly how it feels. There's some mystery going on. This is actually my favorite one in the collection. The guy on the left makes me very happy.
It's very satisfying to watch.
Yeah, it really evokes this kind of nostalgia too for kind of like early PC clip art type stuff too. I think it's that line weight to it, but the colors are also extremely like kind of
The colors
70s
right
and
here.
60s.
Yeah,
it just takes you to this other place. And yeah, I look forward to checking out more of this. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has some great work on Foundation as well, for the ETH heads. But this collection, I'm probably gonna spend some more time with, figure out.
For the people that like to spend gas, what's up?
Or just don't like to bridge their money. It's like such a mental roadblock. It's like literally takes 5 minutes.
It takes 5 minutes.
I'll be honest. I haven't collected on Tezos in a minute, but it's such a wonderful platform for just discovering artists. So much to get there. So this is all one series, or has he just put out new works regularly?
This is all one series, I believe, 10 pieces.
Okay, cool.
And he regularly puts out other one-of-ones or small editions on ETH as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Dick.
So we're gonna make a logical leap in terms of color palettes, and we'll go to one of Brian's pieces here. Here we go.
Aha.
Yes, one of your picks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we got going on here?
So this is a piece by Wooden Cyclops. who's Part
Yes.
of our first guest, Mumbot's Ghost Club. I love his work. And the
Future
reason I picked
artifact.
Future Artifact. So this one's a crazy one. It features Tank Dog, who has also become kind of the symbol for the band Portugal the Man in recent years. And then this piece is that it's like Tank Dog exploding. But the reason I picked it is because Wooden Cyclops is also starting to put out Tank Dog one-of-ones as a series, and so to me, he's expanding on this. He did one called Skinned Alive when he first joined the space, and he got a bunch of artists to do these kind of like skinned
I remember that.
character shapes.
Yeah.
But I'm such a fan of his art style, and this piece is like killer acidy and nostalgic, and it's got that kind of Rat Fink vibe, if you guys know that character. And so I just totally dig it. And this is one of ones I'm proud to have in my vault.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and clearly there's a nostalgia vibe that we are all kind of on a kick there, and I think you can see it throughout the space in general, right? When you look at some of the bigger artists that have had hits, because if this gets me back to a thought that you've been saying lately, Brian, which is the audience that a lot of artists are trying to talk to in terms of the traditional collectors is so different from the audience that they have in front of them, which is this usually younger crowd that has these nostalgia moment for 90s, early
younger in the
2000s.
30 to 40 range.
I say that in the art world, that is younger,
traditional
right?
buyers.
In
Yes.
the art world, it is younger.
Yeah.
But for people who've been working in a career for long enough that they have a little disposable income and they love art, they're going to be that generation right now is drawn to art that reminds them of their childhood, and that's exactly where we're at in terms of and this is completely proof of that.
This is kind of that Garbage Pail Kids nostalgia.
Yes, 100%.
I've loved following along with like the trends of different generations' tastes. As much as it is like hard to get your hands around and like really understand like what is resonating at that scale, because there's not that much data on it. It's cool to see like this being considered fine art, where like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would be considered only something for prints or cards or editions. But now this style, this nostalgic comic style, or like you said, the Garbage Pail Kids, the little just sort of playful nostalgia from the 90s, it is being put at center stage on Super Rare sometimes and being treated right next to the stuff that looks like Renaissance style art. So I love to see and then you have pixel art and different things that just are now finding a voice in the last decade. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's crazy to think just from our childhood how much comics have gone from like nerdy underground to the peak of mainstream awareness and popularity.
Yeah, and skateboarding too. It was a time where it was not very popular, and I thought that I was very cool for knowing about these brands. And then you grow up and you're like, oh, everybody was paying attention, or it became cool like a few years after. It goes through waves. Everything goes through waves. So maybe this style is having a moment right now, and then in the 2030s, everybody will be all no more nostalgia for a little while. I think that we're always going to need a little bit of nostalgia, but it's cool to see like how we lean into the future for a little while and then we lean back towards the past, right? Like when that Mark Zuckerberg video came out, it was like, this is the metaverse. It's like, I don't think so. I think we're going to go back in time a little bit.
We went too far, and you don't know until you go too far that you have to pull it back.
Yeah, nostalgia is just shared awareness. I saw like a TikTok yesterday where someone's like, do you remember playing Elf Bowling, and I was like, holy moly, I do remember that. And then you have this like wave of nostalgia.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a drug. It hits that dopamine when you remember something that your brain has forgotten.
Right. And then that you share that memory with so many people. I've been having conversations with a friend of mine about this topic in terms of because I have a kid, he has a kid. What the concern or just the awareness that we have now of like what will our kids or the next generation have nostalgia for? And obviously there's always things that rise to the top. But society's changed in a way that is really like disparate. Like we no longer have moments where you get around the TV at 9 o'clock at night to watch the same things that everyone else is watching, right? Like there's no more just regular issued comics that people get in the Sunday comics. So having YouTube, and again I think there's going to be a bunch of things that rise to the top and people are like, oh, of course I watched those videos, but there's just so many more things pulling for people's attentions, and because you can watch them at your leisure, it might take away from some of that. So I'm really curious to see what's going to survive, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
I'm guessing 20 years from now, people our age will be like, you remember that obscure Roblox mod?
That's
like,
just it.
And we'll just be like totally unaware of it.
We'll be unaware of it, but there's got to be
These kids.
something that there will be glue that like binds. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who'll be like, oh, I never had that. I never watched that. I never saw that, because there's just so many things.
Yeah. I like the glue metaphor, because I almost think about culture as like always splintering outward from each other. And to relate it back to my whole like course correction thing, obviously that was a play on mini golf with the mini golf course. But I think the second meaning was about this sort of crooked path that we're all on. A little bit more heady and poetic, but we're all doing actions that get us closer to our goals. And it's never a straight line. It's never something that makes sense and until you zoom like way far out. But when you're in it, it's like you're on this path and you're just doing your best to like stay moving towards the destination in some way or another, even if it's not straight. So I like to say you're always correcting course or constantly correcting course.
Love that.
And I think the trends are like that too, just like with the way that our society moves, for better or for worse. And it feels like we're splintering outward, but like you said, I think there'll be some kind of glue that brings us together in the next several years, especially around digital art.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all just kind of, in the moment, but I think if you take a step back, we're also helping define what that moment is. And that's kind of exciting. Like we're not actively trying to define it, but by being a part of it, I think it's really fun that we're, we are going to create moments like that. All right, I'm going to move on. We have a couple more to go. We're going to go
number 2.
This is going to be Efdot. I'm going Efdot.
Oh, Efdot. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, did I skip my second? No.
I think you did.
My bad. I'm so excited to share other people's things that
cool.
let's go with it though. Linnea Moritz, if I'm getting it right, the guitarist.
Yeah, so I just said check out all the paintings by Linnea Moritz. This is one of her,
I picked one.
Yeah, this one's I think one of her newer ones. I really love how she's blending inspiration from like Picasso styles and cubism into her work. If you just this one, I really like the musical elements of it. Like obviously the guitar, you can almost feel like you're hearing the noise that the character is playing. Yeah. But I think some of her other work is a little more show-stopping in terms of just edge-to-edge detail and abstraction.
Let's see if I can find, unless if that's the only one that's rare. I know that you sent to her. Oh, there we go.
Oh wow,
that feels very Guernica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've met this artist as well, and I've seen the physical and digital display of her work, and it just translates so well. She's on board with the Digital Enlightenment exhibitions, and if you know that guy Sinbad who's running those, and I just think she deserves more love for what she's putting into the space, because it feels like I'm watching like a modern day Picasso explore the digital realm, and as much as we talk about Keith Haring and like artists that use line work, she's doing a similar thing with cubism. And I just love to see her passion for it. But I think she deserves more love in the digital space for it, because not a lot of people are doing this in the way that she is, like pushing it far.
Yeah.
It's interesting how she included the frame here.
I love that. I was going to talk
Yeah.
about that. I love that she included the frame here because it commands a presence and it says this is how the art is meant to be seen, right? Like she had a vision for it. This was how the art was created, or at least framed up. And this is literally her saying, this is it. This as a whole is the piece, which I think is great. I don't think there's enough framing in general in digital art. The frames they get, left off because it's more about, a digital display as a frame, which I also love when I see a physical display on top of a digital display, like Mystical Galactical Carlos Luna James, and when he does like physical pieces and puts them around, displays. But I love seeing displays in digital art.
Yeah, me too. I like to add a lot of kind of border frames to my works.
Mhm.
I didn't do it on my last one though, the last two, but sometimes it detracts. But
Yeah.
I think with this one, it really helps.
Yeah.
Especially the gold brings out like the oranges and stuff in the painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this color palette that I actually have a really difficult time working in this color palette, like this sort of medium, slightly muted, a little bit darker colors, but still colorful. And it's almost reminds me of like Fauvism, where it's just like not typical color choices, like on purpose. How do we disorient you a bit and put you in this group of colors that you just never really see together? And there's even some colors that are like brown in there that on their own like aren't necessarily a beautiful color, but when you balance it out with the light blues and the dark blues and the oranges, they all just like really sing. I really want to see the physical of this piece.
Yeah, I love the
You
palette.
know how big it is. Does it say how big it is?
Earthy.
Let's see.
Yes, the frame is real.
And yes, the frame is real.
27 inches by 25 inches.
Or 62 or something.
That's what it looks like.
Of course.
A little hard.
I don't know. There it goes. 37 inches by 25.
Cool.
So that's a sizable piece. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool.
I think physical art belongs on the blockchain too. And I wanted to show like some animation work today, as well as some traditional art where people are just adapting to this new ecosystem. It just feels like it's way more welcoming and more fun than the traditional art way of doing things, or just setting up your own Shopify store. So I encourage any traditional painters to tap into this market and get their work seen like in a new way. That's maybe there's interesting things that have yet to be done in the traditional art meets digital art space. Like I wish more people were playing with that. Hopefully next year we'll see that.
I think in time they will. I do. I think, even if not everybody's adopting it anytime soon, I think that just over time, the curiosity factor will seep in, because it's fun. And all of it happens through word of mouth, right? One artist tells another artist tells another artist. So
Yeah,
I think
as we see here, there's a collector, so people are interested in it.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking
let's go on yours, Adam.
Yeah, let's go for it.
And you.
All right, here we go. So this is appreciation.
Ooh, love her work.
He said needs more appreciation.
Lulin Way, yeah, needs more appreciation for sure. It's so great.
Oh wow,
there's so many fun things happening in here.
You don't see a lot of holiday NFTs anymore. I did one the first year I was in the space. There was like an advent calendar drop. You just don't see a lot. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
I mean, I love the little vignettes, and the subtle textures and the gradients that are all working here, and just the playfulness of it all. And
a lot of storytelling.
It's so much storytelling, right? And just like in a piece like this to have a lot of juxtapositions of shape, right? Curves against straight lines like that, and just very clean. I don't know. It's not something that I make, right? Like I gravitate towards all sorts of things, but I love seeing work that is really well executed and makes me feel good about it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this it feels like a really fun just little wonderland here.
Yeah, I love
This
how the
artist is
pieces
also really,
intersect.
yeah. Go ahead.
That was it. Keep going.
Okay. I was going to say, I love how she always shares her process videos as well. So you can see how she does it. She shares like the sketching of each shape and then meticulously filling and adding the gradients to each shape.
Wow, it's actually drawn, not vector.
Yeah, I think it's Procreate,
Wow.
which is crazy to think about the level of precision that she's getting in Procreate because it doesn't
Incredible.
have the level of like snapping that you get in Illustrator.
Yeah.
And I think like when you see this process, you can't help but connect more with her and with the work
Yeah.
because you can just imagine how many hours this must have taken and what she was thinking about during that process. Whereas, we're going to see things in the future where you just type in text and you get vector art. I think that's already a thing. And now it's like, because I see this process, you start looking closer. It's like, why did she choose that character? Why did she choose everything? And I just have so much appreciation for people who do things the hard way, but the intentional way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big topic. It's an important topic, I'm not everyone's going to have a different take on that, but I think those are all really valid points and make sense. Anytime you can peel back the curtain on anybody's work, no matter what that is, regardless of how easy or difficult it is, it's always an opportunity to connect deeper with that person who's creating it, because you suddenly you can relate to just the labor of the process that it, even if it's a quick thing, right? Even if someone just like draws three shapes, 3 lines, and then you can really identify with, there's seeing the artist and the intention behind any kind of artwork, in my opinion, is an opportunity to find that deeper meaning.
I hear that, but I also want to push back and have like a little devil's advocate for fun
Let's go.
because
Let's go.
like you go to the gym, right? I don't go that often, but when sometimes you go and you see like people who go every single day and they're just like jacked, right? You can see the work that they put in just by looking at them.
Okay.
And they're getting the results from it, right? And they're in there day in, day out, practicing, lifting, doing the hard work. And then I think you see people that like are, let's take it out of the gym. A different analogy is like when you buy something off the shelf and then you gift it versus when you hand make it. You show up to a party and you have this like handmade gift versus the thing that like everybody else showed up with a card from CVS.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
don't know. It's just like when you can see that process, it almost feels like they just have more tolerance and more patience. And I know that you can have a lot more intelligent ideas that are done quickly, and that's a different kind of impressiveness. That's like wit.
Mhm.
But when the magic trick is revealed and it looks like they did it very quickly, it doesn't have the same feeling as when I see something that was labored over and that was practiced. It can still be impressive, but to me, it's not as impressive as someone who has the grit and the tenacity to like do something that no one else would ever do. Like
Mhm.
you look at Jake Fried's work and you're like, that's just insane. And there's no way that you could look at it and not be impressed. So I think it's to each their own with like ideas versus labor intensive art.
Sure.
But there's something about that wow factor where you can just see how much work someone's put in. That's always going to be an important part of the art world, even if it's a smaller section in the future. And I hope that it doesn't discourage people seeing masterpieces or supposed masterpieces like being quickly done, because it does take time to like refine your skills.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. And I think about an artist who can draw a perfect circle in one giant swoop, right? And that didn't happen the first time, right? But if that artist did that real quickly, you don't really get to the sense of process, but you can tell the refinement to get there took a very long time, right?
The practice.
The practice in there. So I don't know. I think there's a give and take between time shown to do something versus actual time that it took, Not just thinking about it. Were you going to go with
Right.
steroids for the other analogy? I was wondering where in the
Steroids.
gym. It's like,
It's admiration of effort.
yeah, exactly. And yeah.
Or
it
like,
was a-
yeah, like we all know that one person who you want to go do something with, but they just like kind of flake out on you, right? They're like,
Mm.
yeah, I'll do that. And then I'll get to it later, or I'll take a shortcut or whatever. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have time. I was too busy trying to do too much and take shortcuts. So that's my analogy. I'm not going to mention steroids.
I was like, where's
Compare.
this going? Right.
Yeah.
But I, like that being said, I think
I
like
get your point.
the quick sketches, the AI tools, the quick ideations are all part of the process, and when they're done really well, can be very impressive. It's just, I think that it's a lot harder to stand out in that realm. You have to be basically a genius to have ideas or have the tenacity to really sit in front of your screen for all day, just like curating. I mean, how do you feel, Brian? Like your work's almost all digital. I know you sketch on paper, but then you jump quickly to digital. Do you feel like just the weight of screen time is something that makes you appreciate more work when you can see how much time someone spent like hand animating it versus not? I love to see like frame by frame animation that's done on paper even too, or whatever. Like, what's your thought about that?
I mean, I agree in general that when I learn about a process that an artist is doing, and I see, someone's like, I spent 20 hours or 100 hours in Procreate doing that, that makes me appreciate it on a different level. I do think, a lot of people in this space currently judge things on the final product and not the process, and that's totally valid because in the end you're doing that. But there's plenty of like 3D artists that belabor the modeling of what they do uh, to a degree that takes them hours and hours and hours. And then there's 3D artists that go and buy a turbo squid model and throw that into a thing. And in the end, the final outcome looks nearly identical. And so it's very important for artists to share the process and say, hey, I built this, it's like I sculpted this from the ground up. I didn't just, use AI or all these other things, but all those are tools. I think it's totally valid.
Yeah.
But there, I just, like you said with Jake, I appreciate that he does it the hard way. Like you could do that digitally, get a similar thing, but because he does it the hard way, there's a grit to it that is not replicatable in that way.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, I'm going to do a little pivot to our second to last piece, and that's a piece that you chose, Brian. I'm guessing it's AI.
That's a fair guess.
But it's a really fun piece. Techno Animism number 20.
Yep. So this one's by Emi Kusama, who I got to meet and talk with in Miami as well. She's been in the space. She is one of the people behind Galverse, and she did a Bright Moments Tokyo drop. This is her new Bright Moments drop. And so I'm a huge sucker for retro futurism. And I love that this is this kind of Japanese retro future 80s thing of like, households living with robots and doing all this stuff. And so the whole collection is very quirky and fun, but it puts you into this, alternate dimension that I find very fascinating. And there's a cohesion, when I talk, we were talking about effort and AI. A lot of times when I think about AI, it's about storytelling and curation. And I think this one has strong aspects in both of those. So I don't know if you want to click around and see some of the other pieces, but you can get a bigger sense. But I like this one because it's like, I like that there's two robots and there's like just a weird like washing machine in the grass.
Yeah,
But it's like, they're proud of their robot family.
I love this kind of work right here.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and I think that's one of the fun parts about AI is when things get really weird. But I feel like this could be a movie. It's like
it's 100%.
It has a very filmic feel to it too. She did a really good job honing in the the parameters to give it that vibe.
Yeah. No, it's really, I don't know. I find this to be beautiful and fascinating when you can use AI to, like, when you put things into AI and you can very clearly see um, the technology showing you a mirror of society back, even when she's asking, specifically for certain things. We don't know exactly what she asked for, but it's still, um, pieces like this can still have. I feel like the technology is showing us what it's interpreting what we were in the past. Like, there's something really fun about that, and fascinating to see through the eyes. Like, when a photographer is taking a picture, you're essentially seeing through their eyes the world, and this is what we're feeling when AI is taking these pictures, even though it's being guided by people. um I don't know, there's something really kind of magical about that until the AI rises up.
And there's another aspect of this that I found kind of inspiring. One, it's still minting on Bright Moments, and the way it mints is you pay zero point 0.1 ETH and you get 3 pieces, which then forces you to have 3 pieces, and you start to think about how they relate to each other and what the story is that connects them. And I thought that was a very interesting way of kind of going about releasing an AI um,
Hmm.
project like this, where you're kind of, I don't know, steering people to be creative with what you give them.
So what happens when you get the 3 pieces?
They all go to your wallet.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I didn't know if there was
You
a
choose
second.
what to do with them, but I look at them and I go, okay, what there's a bigger storyline here, as
Yeah,
opposed to just getting one and you live in that one frame.
yeah.
This you're getting almost storyboards of a scene.
No, I love that idea. Actually, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
feel like the storyboarding aspect of all of this is very fascinating to me because I feel like when collections do really well, there's potential to build on them. There's potential to get them noticed by people who see this as a storyboard and want to
Hmm.
produce something out of it. So people are just able to tell more stories that they wouldn't otherwise be able to tell so efficiently. And like you said, Brian, it's about curation. So you
Yes.
can really tell that this project took some time because there's a nice balance of different types of shots, but they have a lot of variation in their properties and in their like mini stories within the larger story.
It's
Um,
a lot of
yeah,
cohesion too.
yeah, and it might just be like the way that she set out to do it was I want it set in this time period, or I want it set with this color palette. So those are really intentional decisions that can make or break a collection,
Yeah.
I think.
You can see the traits have a camera angle, a season, and a theme.
Okay, there, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one has a letterbox to it, which makes it even more
Ooh, it
so.
has Ikigai as the theme. You guys know what that means?
Mm-mm.
I I did, and then so I'll say no right now. Is that the feeling of
Ikigai.
happiness? Is that the feeling of
No,
no? Okay.
no, it's almost like purpose, but it's an
Oh,
overlap
right.
between what you're good at, what you love to do, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like this
Wow.
this Venn diagram that is talked about in Japan. There's several other concepts. Like once I learned about that, I started looking into the other concepts that we don't have in English that they might have
Mhm.
in Japan, and there's a lot of good stuff there. I'm always learning from international artists through this space.
This is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this one. Yeah. All right. So then we'll round it out with one more. We got
Finale.
the last one that we've got. I've got this piece right here. It's
Oh,
SpongeBob SquarePlace
I love the title so much.
It's binge
by,
bot.
by Custom Horror. It
That's
is
awesome.
such an incredible piece. See if you can get it. Does that look big to you guys now? You can see it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
Ugh, how amazing is this piece?
I love this artist. I have
Me
not seen
too.
this piece though.
Ugh. Yeah. Talk about somebody who's honestly just not getting the attention I think they deserve in this space. I, um, I if colors, texture, concept, darkness. the not giving a fuck.
glitchiness. Yeah.
just and he's incredibly prolific, and a lot of his pieces, so he has a mix of like, he does some AI, he does overpainting, he does complete, just, he does photos, he does overpainting on photos, he does work with he did a semi-generative project recently, that where he did the background. He just did a paint up on, with mixed media and all sorts of stuff, like what do you call it? Spray paints and markers and paint and everything, and then left the face and some stuff off, and then did digital traits, basically like a different face, a different, body, different attributes and backpacks and all sorts of stuff. So like, really just somebody who is very comfortable in their own style and just happy to explore. Like, I don't know, there's something about it that really just resonates really well with me.
That's awesome. That's a great pick.
And of course you got, once again, nostalgia for the win.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a theme. But yeah, no,
this one's like twisted nostalgia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's nostalgia that is directly referencing like Garbage Pail Kids or something like that. That's a little twisted already. And here it's like something that's not twisted and making it twisted, which is really fun. I think like, I wonder like what was the moment they were like, I need to make this piece SpongeBob SquarePlace. Like, I just love that idea. Like, they're sitting around like, what do I want to make?
Yeah. There's a skull there. There's kind of a skull there too. So I think we all brought skulls to the table.
We did. Look at that. There were themes today, folks. Very cool though. I love seeing everybody's stuff. Like I said before, we're gonna make sure that when we wrap, we'll send out a tweet with everybody's works and all their links. There is other work from a lot of these artists still available, and definitely worth checking out and getting on the radar. And I encourage people that even if you can't afford to collect, just retweet, talk about, share with friends. It's how any of this kind of moves the needle for artists. And I think we have a really great space where we're able to do that. And this kind of stuff gets me excited. Yeah. But I'm really glad that we were able to have you on the show today, Efdot. So right now you've got
shout out to
you got a piece coming today with Rich Caldwell, right?
Is that live on Foundation now, or is that later today?
3 hours from now that will be live. And I don't often do these like low reserve auctions with the bidders edition, so I'm hoping that it pops off a little bit today when it opens up for bidding. So yeah, 6:30. Also, right alongside me, Alimo is dropping his edition of 5. Also has a similar theme with like aerial photography and surfing. So it's going to be a fun drop later today.
I'm excited. The whole series is going to be awesome. I love Rich. I mean, I'm a former Rich collaborator as well. So it's always awesome to see how different artists kind of interpret what he does.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to Rich, because like organizing this stuff and wrangling all the artists is not easy, and to Rob as well from Foundation. Thank you for putting this all together.
That's so exciting. I'm excited for you. It's a great piece.
Yeah, I had to end the year strong, but stay true to myself after that friend tech weirdness. And no, I think it's going to be a good way to close it out. And next year is going to be amazing too. I'm excited to see all you guys are working on as well.
It's going to be a fun year, man. It's a fun year. Thank you for coming by, sharing all these different really awesome artists. And I love that we got to deep dive on you and your character, especially the blob, like learning all about where that comes from and the why behind that. It was really special. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for making the space for me to share, and thanks everybody for listening. Looking forward to more of these episodes that you guys have on. Do you know who's next on your show?
I do. Let me see. I do know who's next. I'll say it. You want to say it? Should I say it?
Go for it. If they cancel, that's on them now. No.
That's true. Even more pressure now. Next up, so we are actually, it's a good point. We're going to take a couple weeks off.
Yeah, we got
for the
holiday
holidays.
trips. Yeah.
Yep. So January 5th, January 5th is our next one, and we will have the amazingly talented Pop Wonder on the show.
Yes.
Woo!
Amazing.
So
He was someone that came to mind when I showed that wooden Cyclops piece. That was a very Pop Wondery piece as well.
yes, and when I look at Efdot's character, it's very, in that same sort of like no mouth, no, the facial expressions are open for interpretation. So yeah, we're gonna stick with the theme, artists that
Fun.
we like.
Yep. And my New Year's
Awesome.
resolution is to visit Efdot's studio, which I've not.
Oh, I've never been.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys got to do a special visit.
We gotta go.
Jeez.
All right. Very cool, guys. Well, I guess we will see everybody in the new year. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Art First. And if you guys haven't already, then follow the show, tweet it out, and let's share some art. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, dude.
Take care.